What's up, everybody?
Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. Hey, RDV, it's really great to look underneath that and see 1.01K subscribers. And part of that's, in fact, of what we're doing tonight here,
Yep.
our movie Thunderdome, where two movies enter, one movie leaves. And of course, we're talking about 1985, which is a preview of what we're going to be doing. Of course, this would not be possible if Max and Days, my German separate Czechoslovakian red short hairs, non-working lines are out there patrolling the 5-acre ground estate of the Extreme Movie Studio here by the Palace. And I got to say, RDV, I thought the obvious choice tonight would be to put up some of the more popular contemporary films that many people
Yep.
think of, right? And of course, we're talking Goonies, we're talking Back to the Future. That's a nice one. That's a tough one. And then you put some balls into it. And I thought, this is the 80s where facial hair and big bodies were signs of
Yes.
masculinity. So let's go with that, okay? We're going to Teddy Pendergrass our way through this tonight because
Well,
tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and I don't know where to begin with Commando or Rambo.
honestly, I could care less about Back to the Future or Goonies, but I do recognize that they are two popular franchises. And those would be more evenly matched, I think. Versus this is kind of like, well, it's round two,
It's a
Arnold
heavyweight
versus
fight.
Stallone. So we could arguably say we were talking behind the scenes for my lives that Arnold Conan the Barbarian kind of beat out Rambo First Blood. Uh, but I still say I like them both, But I mean, now this is even more of a challenge because I love Commando more than I love Conan the Barbarian. So it's like, and this is Rambo 2. This is where he's actually in the jungle, going in to rescue prisoners, POWs, and we get the guy who looks like Bennett played with Rushkin. And it's like,
Clone.
yeah, Bennett versus Russian Bennett.
Just pay Bennett. Let him come back, for God's sakes.
Honestly, they are both fantastic movies. Commando is a little bit more over the top. Rambo still has some awesome kills in there with the knives and everything. They're both equally fun. So no matter which way you go, left or right tonight, they are both fun movies. And you're right. This is 1985. We are getting into the action of part of the 80s. It all starts right here, and it goes all the way through into the early 90s. I'd say 91 and 2 with
I
Pop.
think one of the points too I wanted to mention with Commando is it's not just in here by default because obviously Commando is one of the greatest Father's Day movies of all time,
Yes.
and every year here on the Extreme Movie Show we review, or some of you might like to think of it, re-review Commando, because until we find a better Father's Day movie, it's automatically on the top spot. And so we joke about it a lot because it is over the top and it's goofy fun and all that, very quotable. But then you could go, wait a minute, maybe this is the childish one out of these two, because Rambo, it's still kind of dark, it's still kind of bleak, it's still kind of like he went there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, as usual, ladies and gentlemen, what we do here with these two films is that we always pick a winner here from either one. We usually like to talk about what we like about each film first and what we don't like, and then try to go through a little bit more things that might help us make that decision too. So, RDV, I'm going to hand it off to you to start off here first. Let's go with what we do like about Commando.
Commando, Ray Day Chong. Phenomenal actors in here too as well. Alyssa Milano was actually likable back then. This before we found out that she's the crazy one in Charmed. But anyway, Commando is just over the top. It's basically if you play a video game and you get the infinite ammo code, that is Commando. Especially towards the end, you get basically you kidnap his daughter, and you want him to go kill somebody. He says, "Screw this." Kills the guy on the plane, goes after the bad guy, and along the way, just cracks the jokes, the one-liners. It is phenomenal. Like I said, Commando is one of my favorite movies. We review it like every year on this channel. There's at least about 2 of them right now so far. One with Breen and one without Breen, probably.
That's right.
But, yeah,
the brains stream is strong with this one.
It's just Arnold. It's just like Conan Barbarian. Arnold didn't speak so much in this movie, and honestly, that's okay because he delivers those one-liners, and it's not something you expect from a tall 6 foot, tall Austrian guy, muscle bound. Like you wouldn't, you'd think it'd come off cringe, kind of like what Dolph Lundgren does it in The Expendables. It's not a cute thing, but it just works for him. And honestly, it's just cool to see some say this is toxic masculinity, but no, I think it's American masculinity. Even though he's Austrian, playing a former U.S. soldier. But anyway, yeah, that's the other thing. Both movies have two generals that coming back to help ask them to do missions for them or help them out. And yeah, that's what Commando is. It's Commando is the more manlier version, you say, than Rambo 2, because I heard First Blood Part 2 is the most stupidest name ever. It's Rambo First Blood, then there's Rambo 2, because they dropped the ball and said, "Oh shit, we need a name. Well, just call it Part 2."
Yeah.
It's not Part 2. It's,
One of the interesting things about this movie too is James Horner did the score, which we've never really talked about too much, and I believe he's the one that did
yes.
Titanic. So it's got a nice little islandy kind of score, and it only took like less than 2 months to film this, proving that even as recently as a generation ago, you can still make a good quality film as long as you've got all your ducks in a row, and it doesn't have to be overly expensive. Of course, salaries would start to balloon here because of these megastars. Yeah, I always took the Vernon Wells kind of angle in here because
Hmm.
there's this very obvious homoerotic element to it, which is really kind of funny, and I think they kind of played that up, being all serious about plunging my knife into you and twisting it, and all these little gay innuendos too, not just to let the steam off and all this
Yep.
stuff, and him screaming like a girl. And of course, I always like to point out to everybody that some people find absurd his chainmail vest, which is just like a little bullshit net sweater thing they threw on, right? But Vernon Wells, when we talked about movies of 1981 a few weeks back, right?
Yep.
As a kid, man, Vernon Wells was fucking terrifying. I mean, he had that crazy eye thing going on. He had that shit down. And as much as we love Mad Max 2, I think kind of polished that a bit, made it really popular.
Hmm.
Here, obviously, Vernon's got the right attitude. You look at him today, and it's like him going up against Arnie here is not really the fun part to me. It's everything that he does to everybody else there, talking about all this little, "You pissant soldiers, they're nothing. The Matrix will destroy you all." And the way he's just so whatever about it, and then he just goes apeshit and
It's
orgasmic whenever he's yelling and
the
screaming
mall
at him,
scene.
"John, John!" It's hysterical. It is so funny. It almost
Yeah.
takes your eye off of Arnold for me, because you're right. He doesn't talk a lot, plays the good
It's
guy, doesn't talk too much, and then kicks ass.
that mall scene. I always go back to Police Story with Jackie Chan. It's 80s, man. It's such 80s things to do. Like, you're in a mall, everybody's shopping stuff, and then you got to have a chase scene through there.
Hmm.
We see this Invasion USA later on in the later 80s, with Chuck Norris. Just advertising malls and how popular they were becoming. Because malls what was it 1980 or 1981 when all of a sudden the malls started popping up everywhere?
No, malls actually started appearing, especially here in the South. Actually, believe it or not, in the mid to late '60s. Not too many of them. They were like
Really?
regionals. I'm dead
Okay.
serious. But they probably hit the mall culture peaked definitely in the '80s and would start a slow decline in the '90s.
Because the indoor mall by me, like, it's been around since the late, I'd say about 77, 78.
Sure.
So, but I mean, I was talking to my mom, or like, she's, and she said, like, the parents, like, they said, like, there were hardly any malls in the area. It was because I said I live in a rural area. I'm up in Wisconsin, so
Hmm.
if you got a mall, there was one downtown Milwaukee, but it wasn't that nice of a mall, like, so. But it wasn't like, it was like a outdoor mall, and that's what we have kind of here. We have a lot of outdoor malls here too. So, like I said, it's interesting to see that they're doing more with movies like that, and just kind of, as I said, the whole chase scene. You got the cops making look like buffoons because you got this big dude. They're going to restrain him, and he's just like pushes them all over. It's kind of like wrestling when all the refs come out to hold him back, and then they push him back again. Like, it's just fun, and I love that.
Mall chases are always popular. Of course, every so often you would get something in a mall, and of course we'll go back to the '70s with,
Yep,
was it Day of the Dead or whatever, the second one that's in
Dawn
the
of the
mall,
Dead.
and a few others. Yeah, and we covered that years ago, because that's a really good film. And of course, you've got all these other John Hughes films with malls, this and that. So it was not uncommon to see it. Unfortunately, the decline of the mall culture in our life and all that too kind of
Yeah.
took away this interesting element where just things would happen. And there's that great scene in there where, like, the one dude's macking on a chick's the cop, back when cops could actually pull that. And he's like,
Hmm.
"Hey, ladies, you want to see me kick some ass?" And then he looks at him looking around, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna need some help here. This is one gigantic motherfucker." I mean, so it's not like it's really complicated or whatever like that, but people just seem to enjoy having fun making it, did what they tried to do, not pop themselves too much. And it makes for a very enjoyable, uh, goofy, fun popcorn film. It's really, It's really a lot of fun. The one thing about it too, that I'm trying to think of that we have not talked about is I was joking in chat just a moment ago saying, do we need a Commando prequel or whatever like that? I think they knew at the time, let's just do this one film. It'll be what it is. That's it. It's not like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to have to write this John Matrix character with a 1,000-page backstory and the
Yeah.
treatments for all these different things in case we can set up. No, we're just going to film this in a month or two, get this fucker out there, print some money, have some fun, and that's it. And it definitely succeeds on that level. Plus, he's still jacked as fuck in this one. It
Yeah, they
looks
didn't want.
juicy.
They knew back then you didn't have to do a franchise for everything. Everything has a franchise now. Any movie that comes out, it's like they want to have three or four sequels. You don't need that. Sometimes the one and dones are the best.
Only
And
though, rest in peace, Treat Williams. Only like with Sniper, if you can replace it with somebody that's just equally as strong and go in a different direction, like with Sniper films, instead of Tom Berenger, you get Treat Williams. I mean, it's just like that. Who are you going to replace Arnold with him though? Would you do a prequel now? Jason Momoa? I don't think so.
I just watched an interview with Kurt Russell talking about why he never really wanted to do the second sequel to Escape from New York or Escape from LA.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's like, I just like doing the character and then moving on to the next character. He's like, I don't want to be stuck in a role just doing this, because it gets boring after a while.
Yep.
He's like, I like, trying new challenges. And honestly, that makes sense with some of these movies, with some of the actors. Look, like I said, Commando was great. Terminator should have stopped it too. Then you can keep going. And you see how that stale they became. Oh, it's just Arnold again, and it just became a caricature of his character, of the movie. I didn't care for it after that. Rambo started doing this too. The last one was a Last Blood. It wasn't
where they go down to trafficking. Yeah,
it wasn't that great at all. And not because he's old. It's just the fact that it's just like we watched his life and stuff, and now you're just gonna come off at the end. It's just like it's just to me it was just kind of bad. It wasn't needed. This way I would never want a prequel to Rambo First Blood. I don't want a prequel to him being in the jungles and stuff. This is the sequel one was basically him going back and getting prisoners and then being betrayed by Martin Cove. And the rest of the group, and then I just love it. He's like, "I'm coming for you." It's like
I'm coming for you. Oh yeah, people love that shit. Oh yeah,
yeah, that was great.
It's easy. Anybody can do it. Yeah,
yeah. But Kreese, Karate Kid the year before, and then you pop him and see him here, like, holy shit, that's Kreese, and he's playing a good guy.
Yeah, it's one of the few times you would see him that way.
Some people like the joke that that Rambo 2 is Kreese's back prequel before when he was back in the military.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Rambo, what we like about it. I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction here. I was a big fan of years ago when we first started this, of we talk about the Extreme Movie Show kind of as a joke in a way, because everyone thinks about films and how they are today. I'm like, they don't touch older films as far as how good they are and the ideas and everything. And one of the weird films that we've talked about briefly, at least on the list, even if we haven't done them individually, maybe we have, or at least I may have right when we started, but there's a guy named Panos Cosmatos who did Beyond the Black Rainbow, and he did a second film with Nicolas Cage that we covered here, whose name immediately escapes me. And super low budget, great looking films, very weird, trippy, psychedelic kind of shit, has an old vibe to it. Well, the only reason why he was able to make those movies was because he kind of grew up a little bit in the movie industry, because his dad did Tombstone. I think the residuals off that's what able to, as a kid, as a young man, to finance making his first movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then he also, I think his father here, George Cosmatos, actually, I think, directed this film, because he's done a few things. And it's kind of interesting how, okay, we're a generation here later, 30, 40 years, and we're talking about these relationships that exist. Because the one thing that I think is also very popular for both these films, no matter who ends up winning, is that when we talk franchise, everybody goes to Jaws, right? Then they go to Star Wars. Okay, Bond had been around for a while, not American. But then you get to where you're like, okay, what about the 80s? You go, look at all the horror stuff that came out in the late 70s, early 80s that were franchises, comedies, all sorts of types of films. And while Rambo would go on to be a franchise, Commando wouldn't, the battle between people was not Chuck Norris versus everybody else, or Chuck Norris versus all the other martial artists that came in the 80s, no matter what. Chuck Norris is still number one. It really is these two guys. Because the one thing you had mentioned before about Arnold and characters and action, all that going from fantasy, Arnold tried changing some things up but he knew what the audiences gave him. I think one of the things about Stallone that I do like, and later we can talk about what we prefer out of these two guys for whatever reasons, is forget the physiques in a sense, because even though they're totally different,
Yeah.
Stallone works his ass off for everything, but he likes to come up with a story and he tries to put different spins on stuff, as evidenced by Rocky, as evidenced by Rambo, and all these other things too. And I
Mhm.
think this movie did a very good job of playing to what the first film would hint at, and because it was so wildly popular, that when this film came out, it was a couple years later. You're like, well, is it going to be as good? Is it just going to be a? Is it going to be a Commando? Is it going to be a kind of a goofball
Yeah.
film? It's not. This is a film that a lot of people knew was coming out way ahead of time. They were looking forward to it. So by the time it came out, it's like everybody saw this film. It was on every screen in every
Mhm.
theater that you could think of as a kid. I mean, it was just, you'd see it just by going to see another film just because it's there. I mean, that's how, I don't want to say popular, because it wasn't popular like with mainstream media, because people didn't like touchy subjects in the 80s, like God forbid the Vietnam War, where
Yeah.
whatever your political beliefs are was still in the consciousness. And we've talked about that too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
this is when I started going, okay, I think this guy's onto something, not just because of Rocky, but because he did it again. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I think this movie, if this is your type of movie where you want to see him and a group of guys go in there and do good stuff, this is where we're starting to peak in the 80s with Reagan being reelected and the whole patriotism angle, not just with Chuck Norris, but with him and
Yeah.
Red Dawn and everything. You definitely get that in here too. And again, it's not a goofball kind of
It,
film.
it
It's not a
is.
pleasantly fun one to eat popcorn and watch.
Yeah, and Rambo 2 is not, and I'm gonna call it Rambo 2 because I'm not gonna call it First Blood. Sorry, it's not called Rambo because that'd be dumb. Because there already is in the Rambo movie. You debate that's the first movie, or you can debate that's like the fourth movie, whatever it's called. But no, so with this movie, like I said, it's about a guy basically. He's talked into basically going behind him lions to get these soldiers out because he's the only one that knows how to get in there, get these POWs out. But they want to, but then they get orders to keep it quiet because they're not supposed to be over there. And so they
Good
kind of like,
mission, should you
yeah,
choose to accept it.
yeah, basically. And from the very beginning, like when they're dropping him off, on the plane, and then his gear gets snagged, and he misses, so he doesn't get his gear, gets lost because he gets caught on the actual plane. So he has to cut it and let it loose, and then so he has nothing. And they go in, he just takes, see why I'm sneaking through, taking out guys one by one. And basically, I love the fact that it's space. This is the movie that introduces basically a one man army, but done stealthy way, where Commando is just Terminator, pretty much with the daughter, with a few funny lines. Rambo Part 2, or Rambo 2, as I'll keep calling it, just to trigger Dre, because I know he likes it. This movie, I like the fact that he basically, we get to see later on, and he basically takes the bow and arrow, and he puts a grenade tip on it, fires at the guy across the shore, blows him up at the end. And the helicopter chase when they're in there, and they're basically about to get killed. He lowers it, and he fires a rocket launcher right through the glass, and he kills the other Russian copter, which is so unbelievable. It would not happen at all, because it's no, but somehow is able to fly home though. So I always liked Rambo 2 for this. I think Rambo 3 was just a recycle part. It's like, we're gonna throw you in Afghanistan, or Iraq, whatever it is, and we're gonna give you another rocket launcher, and I'm gonna give you the same weapons again. You're gonna use the bow and arrow with the grenade tips. And I was just like, this has been done before. It was kind of like watching Rocky 5 in that sense. That's why I don't ever really like the third one as much as I like the first two. And then, kids, especially the first two, because this is a different two. This isn't just Rambo being in United States. This is Rambo doing what he does best and just being an elite killer. Because they tell you all this, in the first movie, show him up how the cops can defeat him. But when you actually see him in there, like he's rescuing the POWs, he gets a girl and just everything. The dude gets electrocuted, doesn't break, doesn't speak. To me, that's much more disturbing than John Matrix coming after you.
Yeah, and I think too, what I'll go ahead and plant this seed here too, because while it was certainly very intense, both films as far as their action, even though, um, You might argue there's more goofy stuff, maybe even in Rambo, because of the creativity of some of the kills. Whereas,
Hmm.
Commando, it's not scary. It's kind of laughable and over the top, but still fun,
Yeah.
in a very juvenile way. I'll start to segue back to Commando. I'll just put this out there and let you continue. Is that one of the things I don't like about Commando and I don't like about Rambo is actually the same thing. I've talked about 1985 and Commando in particular being one of the first movies, and this one here, where they went away from like fisticuffs and beating each other up, that kind of stuff, physical
Just the
violence.
weapons. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to guns and weapons and everything else there too. And like you had mentioned in your own thing, Commando's like, if you got a cheat ammo code in a video
Yeah.
game or something, right? Like Contra or
Yeah.
something, you just unlimited ammo.
Yep.
At some point it just gets, it's dumb and it's stupid and it's okay. And the older I get, the more I see this stuff, the more I go, I like the other parts of the film rather than that. Now, I'm not anti-gun. I'm certainly not
No,
anti-violence. I love me some good
I
violence.
gotta
I
say,
just get numb to it, though.
though, I know it's stupid being a person that says fired guns before and stuff.
Yeah.
There's unlimited ammo, but the explosion, the pyrotechnics, I
Yes,
miss that in cinema.
I do
Everything
too.
is CG. That was
Yes.
all just real explosions they set up, and I just love it. He's using the trip lines,
Mhm.
the claymores, and just everything. Uh, but you can tell, yeah, even then Beverly Hills Cop is the same way too. When they fire the guns, they get machine guns. Like you don't really see the bullet holes, but you see the dust part though because they're firing blanks. But it's like
Yeah.
I I like it sometimes when you actually see people get hurt. Like at least like the Clint Eastwood movies. You'd see the bright blood. This you really don't see as much. Now Rambo 2, you do see some of that.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
oh, and it is like I said, he's got that big old Bowie knife, and he uses that. I love it. Like I said, if you want to watch Commando's for the laughs. Rambo 2 is more of the serious, though, kind of your action movie. And then it's more of a serious note, basically saying like it's kind of like it's not. I don't want to say it's anti-American, but it's in the same vein as Missing in Action. Chuck Norris says like hey, we're winning the war, and you screwed us over. Government screwed us over. We pulled us out. It's like and you left my friends behind. That's kind of the
It'd be
mentality.
anti-war machine.
Yeah,
The
it's
military
it's
industrial
it's
complex. Yeah.
it's not anti-war. It's more the anti idiots running the government. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. I think one thing about both the films too, besides that, is we mentioned before, it was very hard to kind of like say with Ghostbusters to go, well, let's just judge Ghostbusters by itself as a film, not because of what spawned later or those
mhm.
kinds of things, just head-to-head matchup. And so again, you got Rambo with the franchise, you've got Commando that's not, but you
Yeah.
could argue that Schwarzenegger is the bigger actor. I've never actually seen a list of box office tallies between Schwarzenegger and Rambo. I would think Schwarzenegger's won, but let's not forget Stallone's done a lot, So it's like I say, this matchup's really good that they continue to parody it, and was it Last Action Hero in the blockbuster sequence when they go back and he's playing like Commando or whatever, or no, he's playing a Terminator. Stallone is. That's kind of funny. So that's a good 10-15 years because they're always trying to outdo each other, and man, it's tough. So when it comes down to like if you're coaching, it's easy. You can go by grades, you can go by behavior, and go by who's working harder, that sort of stuff, and use some
Yeah.
standards to let athletes cut themselves. So here with these films, I got to say, what is
So
it about these since we love them so much, and if we don't
well,
dislike them that much, what are we going to look for to disqualify one
all
more
right.
than the other? What
Well,
standards do you think
well,
we should
let
look
me.
at?
Well, first, let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you the budgets for both movies. And so Rambo 2 came out back in May
Yep.
of that. And so that it only had $25 million budget, and they walked away with $300 million in
Yeah.
profit.
Was that what did you say it was 25 and then 300?
Yep.
Okay, so that's a 12-to-1 ratio.
So then you look at Commando. Commando comes out later in October of that year with a $9 million budget and walks away with 57, almost $60 million.
Yeah.
And
Roughly 6-to-1.
and they said like this is people at this point they saw Terminator last year, and they're seeing him in another role. So it's like Arnold was just he did Conan, then he did Terminator. This is his third film, a big film. Honestly, I being the little dog, a lot of people I always hear they love this. I don't really hear talk about Rambo as much.
You
I
don't,
did.
and you're
No,
absolutely right. For some reason, basically, the Rambo franchise gets ignored.
yeah. If you hear anything about Stallone, it's Rocky. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it's. But I almost wonder though if the reason that people went obviously to go see Rambo is because of the fact that it's more of a serious movie. They saw First Blood. This is a Commando is a movie. They don't. The trailers probably shows him kind of like joking around. They're like, I don't know about this. We saw Terminator. He didn't do much talking at all. He was a beast, but
Yeah, he's a
still, so
meathead. Let's just let
yeah,
him be a meathead.
yeah.
Don't go up there and start talking quantum mechanics. Go up there and
Rock,
say dopey
and
one-liners
so
and beat the shit out of
I
people.
can understand why people would go like, hey, this is Rocky, dude. Those are all movies. We saw Rocky 2, Rocky 3. Rocky 4 came out this year as well, 85. So people are like, dude, like let's go see Stallone. Stallone's a really awesome actor. They love it. They love his movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's why a lot of people went back then. Would probably I can imagine why it made so much money. Where I go to Commando. Commando is like, all right, let's take a try on this. But honestly, though, I'm shocked that more people didn't go back and watch this movie over and over again because Commando is such more enjoyable than Rambo. It's not to knock Rambo. It's just Commando is just a feel good time. You can take your friends, and family there, like just the one liners. Oh, don't mind my friend, he's dead tired. All the things like I'll kill you last. I lied. It's like lay some steam Bennett. There's so many one liners. It's like Top Gun with this. Rambo, all everybody knows is was it UHF? Where Weird Al makes fun of him. Literally, I don't hear. It said it's Commando is the more enjoyable movie, but the time it came out, Arnold was still kind of fresh in people's faces. I don't know why. Why compare any poor movie to the GOAT? We wanted to talk about Stallone versus Arnold again. We could have. Hey, our original idea was Goonies versus Back to the Future. Nobody wants that crap.
I disagree about that. Goonies versus Back to the Future. I think Goonies.
I would be pro Back to the Future. I just can't stand Goonies. Goonies had good music, but that's it.
There's something very annoying about Goonies.
It's Josh Brolin on a bicycle. I don't know. It's
a bunch of yelling, whiny kids. Yeah, here's the problem. This movie also this matchup here in Thunderdome, Commando versus Rambo 2. It's a perfect classic example of what I've been saying as we go through each of these decades and cover films, and we relate them to films we've seen before and talk about trends and stuff, different generational themes. Me from the 80s, you from the 90s, Professor Pixel from the aughts. I look at this and I go, it's such a matchup of the two, what I felt were the two most prevailing ideas of the 1980s that you would see in film. You would see a fun film like Commando, goofy, completely unrealistic, completely nonsense, kind of like starting your own prostitution agency or running whores, from your house so you could go to college to Princeton, or any number of movies from the 80s, just really stupid, dumb ideas. And you're like,
that's pretty risky.
You know what? That just might work, right?
Yeah.
But then you get the serious films like People Love Death Wish. Is it serious? Well, yeah, people love Vigilantes. Yeah. You got Rambo stuff, but all the dark stuff. None of the critics or people in just regular media at that time wanted to even talk about any of these ideas that may or may not have had substance, right? Okay, what's Commando? He's a merc. He blah, blah, blah. Okay, he's just going to go whatever. Save his daughter. Simple plot. Rambo, they're trying to present both sides of what was going on. People don't want to do that. It gets ignored. Yet, look at the return. Rambo 12 times its friggin' thing. That's why people gave Stallone authority to do stuff. The man would fucking print money. I'm not saying Schwarzenegger couldn't.
No.
But again, I give so much credit to Stallone for putting a lot on his plate, because he would go on to do all these other films, and he was just pumping this stuff out. Schwarzenegger was taking the less is more way, and Edible Brewer, my boy, knows that more is more. So it's really hard for me to pick out of these two which one is the best. But I definitely am going to have an answer here, and I do have one. And so, any other final thoughts before we wrap these up as far as either these two?
One last final thought on Rambo. The Rambo, I think, also was popular because a lot of people, or not prisoners, but veterans that came home, could identify with this character.
Absolutely. And
where Schwarzenegger his character was just like, that's not real. It's like watching any show that has to do with cop procedural with an actual cop, and he says this is bullshit, made up Hollywood. Where
don't talk about T.J. Hooker like that.
I'm just saying. So I can understand that there a lot of Americans are still upset because we left people behind
Yeah.
and nothing
Oh, yeah,
was being done
absolutely.
about it. We pulled out of the war. And it was just a waste of war. Why are we even in there if you're just gonna just back out? And it's just everything. It was a bad thing going on. But and like I said, Stallone is very serious when it comes to his movies. Arnold, they don't know this guy is Austrian trying to pretend to be an American soldier, special forces or special forces. But I don't know. Like I said, honestly, you got comedy to the left of me, and you got and you got serious to the right. And I'm stuck here in the middle with you, Rob.
Yeah, you fuckhead. Um,
I
it. Look,
here I'll
Rambo
make my
really went for it, and you
yeah.
could argue whether or not it succeeded. A lot. This is one of those movies, like a lot of Stallone stuff. The critics would just trash him because we don't like him. He can't act. They'd say the same thing about Arnold, but fuck the critics. I mean, we're critics too, but we basically talk about what we like and don't like, and I think that's really the best way to go. I give Rambo all the props in the world for going, hey, you didn't make a shit second movie. It did not feel like a cash in. You expanded on something that you're doing. Thumbs up for you, buddy. I look at Commando and go, this is so fucking stupid. The knit chainmail thing, the little ice cream on a nose feeding deer and smelling the wind, as the copter comes up at the beginning, all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, I have my answer. And before I give mine, I want to
I'm pretty.
ask you what yours is out of these two and
My
tell me why.
answer growing up, I watched both these movies when I was like around like 12 or 6, between 12 and ages 12 and 16, because I was watching Terminal stuff in the 90s.
Mhm.
And Rambo was the movie that I identified more with. I wanted to be like the badass. I wanted with the big old knife. I wanted
Yeah.
just killing. I mean, everybody had the bandana. You play when you played Army, well, I'm gonna be Rambo.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
kid's like, yeah. And Rambo, they released so many video games based on this. Arnold was Terminator for me. That's what Arnold was. It wasn't even Conan the Barbarian. He was the Terminator. So I obviously I gotta go. I'm going with Rambo Part Two, man. It's just something I loved more
Wow.
as a kid.
Was not
And
expecting this.
no, but I hear it's now. If you're watching which movie I watch more, and it's only because it happens to be on TV once in a while. I see it pop on, and that's Commando.
Yeah.
But I don't watch. I don't. But I'm not. I never go sit down and watch the whole entire movie. It's only because it happens to be on TV. I'll watch it. Same with Rambo 2 if it's on. But I love Rambo 2, and I love the Rambo character more than I love John's character, John Matrix.
Wow.
John is on the throne, but
Wow.
yeah.
Impressive. I'm going
And
to go in an opposite direction of you with your
you're
thinking
gonna
because
please Eric.
Eric, I know nothing but to please you. Book Father's Day for me, Daddy. Um, what's Rambo 2? First Blood Part 2.
No, first one's First Blood.
Here's my thought on both these movies going back to the first time I saw them. Okay, Commando, goofy movie. Dumb, stupid. Rambo, shit, that's kind of serious, And once in a while, I like to watch a serious film again. I like to feel what I'm going to feel. So, being that it's been a good generation plus since these have come out, and to your point, obviously Commando gets shown more than Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
I look at these and I go, man, Rambo by any measure of the book is better. I think for what they were trying to do. Does that matter to anybody watching film today? I don't think so. I don't think all the historical context we've talked about here on the Extreme Movie Show, as well as these characters and all the themes, matter because this is a head-to-head matchup, and everyone's got a puncher's chance. At least that's what we try to do. I'm going to have to go with Commando, and here's why. Because as dumb and as stupid as it is a lot more fun. It's infinitely more rewatchable. It's very rare that I go stupid-ass film, but it works. Rambo's a movie that you could watch, and at this point I'm going, okay, now you've got a crew with you. You're doing it. I see it. I get it. But like Rocky, I love Rocky 2, and everyone loves other Rocky films. You really didn't need any more after them. And I'm not penalizing Rambo or the Rocky films for having sequels here. It's just that the first ones are the best. Now, I would even argue at some point when we go through the entire Rambo franchise and do each of the films that the one that came out was in 2006, where it was just First Blood or whatever it was called, That's still, to me, to this day, on paper, with all the horror I've seen and all the goofy ass shit from the 80s and Italian films and European crap, most violent, realistically disgusting movie I've ever seen when it comes to that, when he's in Burma and all that stuff there too. It's still not better than the first film,
Yeah.
but fuck, it's good, and he does such a good job. But again, it's a head-to-head matchup.
Yeah.
It's a split decision to me. I don't think it's a TKO, but I got to give the slight edge to Commando. It's just infinitely more accessible on so many levels, whether it's goofy, whether it's action. I think it's got a bunch of more elements to it that make it more palatable. And I'm not saying better, but just to me,
You know,
again, if I have to pick between one of these two and put them on my shelf and can only watch one of these two for the rest of my life, it's going to be Commando.
do you know
So
what's
I got to go
crazy?
with that.
I was looking up these movies and look up Rambo 2 here, and I can keep saying it Rambo 2 because that's what it is, Rambo 2. It's not First Blood Part 2. There's no First Blood in this movie. First Blood was in the first one. Rambo 2, and I like the fact that well, I'm not necessarily like the fact, but I mean, I was looking it up, and the more I was looking at the cast members, and it's just really weird because in December he had one of the actors died.
Yeah.
And he played the Russian, the one that electrocutes Rambo, torches him. He dies, and then February, Carl Weathers dies.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Two actors from two of his I don't know, his big franchises have just passed away. So it's like, who's the third? I'm scared.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I say bad things coming through.
But yeah,
The old expression.
right. And I gotta say, I do Commando. It's basically here's the movie you cheer on, where Rambo is the more movie, like the more drama aspect, kind of like Rocky, which I get more emotionally attached to as far as that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that, one of these days too, one of the things we've talked about so many different ideas on the Extreme Movie Show. We're revisiting the 80s and our older material here now that we have a much bigger audience too, to kind of see what the audience likes and what they're responding to. And I've always thought to myself, it would be interesting, because sometimes you see this on Twitter or whatever, where people might go, here's the top 10 songs from 1983 or 84. And I'm like, yeah, I know this one. Oh, that's good. Oh, this, that, or whatever. And again, kind of the Extreme Movie Shows kind of started with the idea of that, were things really better in the 80s? Everybody likes to say that the decade they grew in was the best of what are citing pop culture stuff mostly. And if you want to get political, you can argue that too. And I certainly think that what the thing I found interesting before we launched this was that, like, say, you and Professor Pixel eventually, who'd help out too, and being different generations, everyone seems to gravitate more towards when things are older. And even over on the Geeky Puppet Show, where you guys do readings and all that too, I know you guys are fond of older stuff as well. So I just don't think it's that. I just think there's something in the air when it comes to it. Not to say there isn't things out there we don't like or we don't watch, but I've always wondered about saying, hey, if you went to the theaters here, July 4th of July weekend, let's say, here's what was playing in Central Florida here by the Extreme Movie Studios at this theater. And of course, we wouldn't have the megaplexes. We'd have maybe 2 or 3 screens, right? Maybe some drive-ins still. But imagine going there and seeing Commando or Rambo. You'd be like, screw that. Drop me off the ball, Mom and Dad. I'm going to watch Commando. Then I'm going to go get an orange Julius and whatever, walk around, hit on some babes, and then go watch Rambo, and then go to the arcade and call it a day. And then, you're happy for the whole week. I mean, Jesus, what a good way to spend it.
Man, come on, come on, Rambo 2. You got your shirts off, and you got the scar because you cut the ribbon off. You get your side back.
Let me go buy a gun.
And, like I said, I love this. Like, one's a family movie, one's an adult movie. So, like I said, popcorn versus drama action.
Yeah. It's interesting because with Commando doing Father's Day as a review of it, we kind of goof on it and talk about stuff. When you watch something over and over again, sometimes you pick out stuff with the lines, or you notice things with editing, or you notice the music. I'm particularly fond of the when they're getting on a plane and when he jumps off and he's setting his little, I don't know if it was Timex, but the digital watch, because those were starting to pop in the 80s. Yeah. And you hear that little island. I forget the name of the instrument. The type of drum or whatever, it goes to and you're like, I don't know why it reminds me of Miami Vice, because you hear that tropical kind of sound in Jan Hammer's intro. So there's a lot of things that when you would see a film like that, go, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. And people would come out of a film, you go and you talk about it and you engage, and that was where a lot of this kind of started. And I think with Rambo, what was tough about seeing it that also made me edge out towards Commando is that you and I go see it as a teenager, right, or
Yeah.
whatever. What can we relate to? Right now, does anybody know anything about war? Nobody wants to serve. It's totally different. A lot of people that are overseas are serving tours and are in support roles. I mean, I still work with many people in my private practice who have served and all that. So we talk all these stories now. Things are different. There's that sense of brotherhood that I think Chuck Norris did a very good job of communicating in his films when it came to prisoners of war and Vietnam
Yeah.
type stories, as well as say what Rambo did. Those are great. Those are fine things. But if you're going to go see this film, if you don't have some sort of connection to that, or maybe your connection is the opposite way, you would be like, "Oh no, worse, dumb, worse, stupid. There's no way we should be doing it." Whatever your feeling is about it, I think it can alienate some people to it. And I do think that Stallone, to his credit, wanted to make sure he got the hardcore, right wing kind of view to it, and the Reaganism and stuff that was going on. But then there was the, well, what about us? You guys never let us win it. There's the speech at the end of the first movie that
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of people remembered, but it was only because your older family members or people you knew that on a street that served that they would come over and say that movie Rambo's full of shit because of this, or he really got this right, and just the intensity of the emotion of their voice, of their storytelling, would like you go, yeah, I knew somebody that served, or my mom served, or whatever, or my dad served, whoever, a family member. So it might make you take it more seriously. But again, if you're going to pick these two out, it's not going to mean that much to you. So I still have to go with Commando. It's just more widely accessible for that. And I hate to say it was good, but yeah, out of these two, it's got to be Commando.
I would say for me, I guess that I can watch either one of these, but Commando, that end song, man, that's better than the whole entire movie. We fight for love.
Yeah, if you go out there on YouTube, you guys will see clips of like all the homoerotic exchanges between him and Bennett. You see all sorts of weird stuff that people like to
Yeah.
edit. It's fun to pick out something and enjoy it. And so, of course, when Predator would come out a year or two later, people would be even more primed to see it because of how fun Commando was, and the continuous snowballing effect of success that Schwarzenegger tried to program himself for. Again, I think Stallone tried to do a lot of different things in different areas to challenge himself personally, whereas I think the more singular-minded focus Schwarzenegger had of trying to improve himself and get better, which I do think he does. Obviously, he'd end up in comedy and
Yeah.
other things too. Is pretty interesting to watch because the next year's matchup, we'll see what comes up. I'm wondering if we're going to have more matchups between these two.
Hey,
And that's another reason why we want to come back to it.
honestly, I'm looking forward to an '87 where we can talk about Predator, because I like Predator more than I like Commando. Predators.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't think that's an interesting conversation, but I don't think that's debatable, but it might be.
Hey, no, hey, maybe we'll have a top 10 bracket as far as Arnold's movies.
Oh yeah, all that
we'll
stuff.
Debate them.
Let's take a moment. Let's just talk about again our matchup here for Movie Thunderdome 1985, split decision, Commando versus Rambo. We're doing that because on Sunday night, 7 p.m. EST, we're going to be talking about 10 movies of 1985, and we usually go in chronological order, and we'll talk about runner-ups. We may have the young 20-something Professor Pixel if he's not working at Publix joining us. We like to bag on him for it because he's stepping up his work game on the outside, so he spends a lot of time busting his ass. And
he's
so
at Publix. He's also working for Jeff Bezos, giving all his soul away. So, yeah.
He who shall not be mentioned, right? But the other thing too is the young 20-something Professor Pixel and I, we made a commitment that we're going to go through all the James Bond films in order because he's not seen a lot of them, and so that's what we started doing. And of course, life gets in the way and work and all that, which has to come first right now. It's been a little bit of a delay, so we of course have done Octopussy. Now we're going to be going with the last Roger Moore film, A View to a Kill, which has Christopher Walken in it. And so I know you may join us with that too because you missed out on
definitely
the Connery ones.
It's Christopher Walken as
that
guy.
At 6 o'clock, and then 7 o'clock we're going to be doing the 85 movies.
Well, the Bond is actually going to be offline though.
Yeah, I know, but I'm letting people know it so when it drops next Thursday.
Yeah, so we're right. Well, they'll see when I schedule it.
Yeah, we have talked about doing live reviews, and we've done a few of them where we would play the movie and talk about the scenes, and those are wildly popular. But I think a lot of generic people want to say, well, show the fucking film. And of course, we don't do that for our own reasons too. So, it's kind of hard because James Bond is obviously a franchise. We'd like to do it, so we'd like to spend some time on it. We'll be dropping that for next week. And then a week after that, of course, will be 1986 and 87, and then we'll reevaluate after 1989. Anything you need to plug? Anything else you need to go over?
Nope, that's it. Pretty much. Just if you guys ever done so, please click like, share this out. Let people know that we exist. We need to watch them right now. We have more than enough subscribers, but we're hurting for views. We have a lot of old content, and possibly might be recycling some of the older content like we're doing now with these. If you enjoy these top tens we do on Sundays, let us know. Let's because basically lets us you letting us know lets us know what we should do more of. We like reviewing movies too, but we also like doing stuff like this, talking to you guys, interacting, see what you guys think. Obviously, you're not going to agree with everything we choose up in here. We get complaints about the movies sometimes, but the fun part is that we get to interact with you guys. And then, like I said, not everybody agrees on everything. And I'm like I said, I love Commando, but I love Stallone's performance in Rambo more than I love Commando. Commando is a movie I can watch any time of the year, if I want to. But I honestly, I just get more out of watching Rambo.
Yeah, and honestly, we'd like to differentiate ourselves for a couple things. One, we just really launch it and go, fly off the cuff, so it's very
Yeah,
spontaneous. We do not do show prep, and God forbid people feel like
no,
we're not being professional about it. The idea here
it's
is
like
that we're genuine and we're in. Well, that's true. We're
yeah,
genuine. We're in the moment. We're relating to stuff we've done before, because all the old content that we do is still valuable, and so this constantly building up of ideas and sharing them, swapping them is pretty unique. And the
hmm
other thing about it too is that we're not on several times during the week like a lot of other channels are. We're trying to increase that. Obviously, some of you guys and some of you newer ones too that have joined recently, you're going to see some reshuffling of some content and also some lists. We're experimenting with different formats and things to change it up to just see what we like and play around with as we grow and continue to do so. Our watch time is up. Our subscribers are up. We really appreciate it. Now that we almost officially can sit there and say we have a live paying audience, it's like, okay, we want to definitely churn out even more content. We never get to all the things that we want to cover or when it happens. So we'll organically pause what we're doing and we'll do like the Carl Weathers tribute video for that if it's an actor that we really like or appreciate or think is significant. Same thing with these matchups too. That's why I always say whatever you guys spending time with us is the best thing you could do. Of course, letting everybody know that we exist. I have really basically no social media, but it is out there. I know that you help out
yeah.
there on your stuff there with Instagram and all that too. So guys, let people know if they want us as guests to go over and talk about movies in a certain format or whatever. We're more than happy to cross promote with others. But bottom line is we're not going to be changing what we're doing. We just enjoy doing it. And no matter who's listening, who's not, he and I would still be here as well as Professor Pixel talking about it, even if we had no. So that's what you get, and we love it. So you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. So Book Father's Day, Easy E, Eric, Brandon, I'll be sure to talk to you then. Have a good night, everybody. Stay extreme. Or as the great one used to say from back in the 70s, good night now.
Later, guys.